Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here in Englewood, New Jersey today, and the topic we chose to speak about is life after death. Before I start the lecture, you have some free CDs here on the table here, or MP3 for the car with many lectures in English, and DVDs. The color one are DVDs, Torah and Science. You can take advantage and enjoy. The Torah and Science is a 4-hour film. It's divided to 3 different parts. The first part is proving scientifically that the Jews really accepted the Torah in Mount Sinai without a doubt, that it really happened. The second part is showing that the written and the oral Torah could never be given by any human being. Only the Creator of the world was able to write it. And the third part is answering all the most frequent questions that you hear all the time from people, Jews, non-Jews, everywhere. For instance, the purpose of life. If God knows the future, how do we choose what we do? Why wicked people suffer? All these famous questions that every one of you ask millions of times. It's the answers right there with proofs, of course. None of the film is based on faith or believing. It's 100% based on knowledge. If you pay attention to the details, you'll never ever have a doubt that the only authentic and real religion in the world is the Jewish religion. 80,000 religions who came after, it's all fake. One after the other. Once you watch the movie, understand what I'm talking about. I know I'm jumping too high because you still didn't see the facts, but I have 17 years of experience. I didn't see one person who was able to challenge it, so I'm having some confidence that it won't change somehow today. So this is it. Now, the lecture that we're about to watch and to hear is scientific proof for life after death. Why it's important? What does it have to do with religion? Life after death. First, most people in the world ask their question, what's going to happen one day when we leave this world? Are we going to become sand and that's it, we don't exist anymore? Or really, what some of these religious people say, that the soul comes out of the body and remains somewhere, and there's life after life, and there's heaven, and there's hell, and all these things that we heard millions of times everywhere in the world, even by different religions, they adopted this idea. Is it real, or it's just a myth? Is it something that cannot be proven? You either believe or not believe. That's it. So it's going to be a lot easier for a person, after he sees the proofs that I'm going to show in the next hour and a half, a person will understand right away that for sure, there's no question, there's life after death. No, so what is it? No, so there's life after death. What happened here? Okay, so there is life after death, and in that case, okay, what does it help me? Okay, so there's life after death. The answer is, of course, it helps me. It's the most important discovery a person can find in his life. If up to now he thought he's going to live 70, 80 years and died, like most people, they get to this age and they're over, then now he just found out that billions of years is not even the beginning. Because based on the Torah, the soul is endless. It's a spiritual energy, it's a divine energy that the Creator of the world put inside a person's body, and it's a permanent thing. It's not temporary, it lives forever, eternity. So based on these claims, all we have to do is to prove it. Once we prove it, then comes the next question. Okay, so how do I get to this place that the Torah promised that it's a good place for the soul? And how I don't want to get to the place where the Torah says you don't want to be there? What do I have to do right now when I'm still alive, when my soul is in a body, in order for me to gain what the Torah promised? Now remember, we have to go by the right order. The right order really is first to take the DVD, Torah and Science, and watch it. Then you know after that 100% there is God. He runs the world. He created the world. He puts us here. We are the most important thing in the creation. Everything was made for us. We are the only species in nature that has a free choice. All animals live by instinct. They always react the same. People choose what to do good, to do bad, to say good, to do all kinds of things. It's all 100% in our hand. That's why there's jails for people and no jails for animals. That's why there's courts and police, and by the nature there's no court and police, because everybody understands a lion who attacked the zebra is not a murderer. He needs to eat, and that's the way nature is. But if a person kills another person because he wants to take his food or wants to take his money, that is a murderer. And then he goes to jail or gets executed. Why? Because he could have chosen not to do it. So everybody understands that concept. Even those anti-religion that claim that they don't believe in that, they live according to the religion to some extent. Because according to the Torah, we are liable to what we do because we have a free choice. If we wouldn't have it, then you can do whatever you want. You're a robot. So that's very important thing. Now, once we know that life has a purpose, and the Torah has an interesting verse, I'm giving you the life and the good. Who is speaking? God himself. The bad and the death, and you should choose the good. You can choose the bad, you can choose the death, you can choose whatever you want. I do not interfere with your choices. But in the end, everyone is going to be judged by me, for good or bad. That's the concept. You finish this world successfully, spiritually. Nobody cares how much money you have in a time of death. The question is, what did you do with your money? Good things or bad things? Nobody cares how handsome you are. Nobody cares all kinds of things, what kind of house you live in, what kind of car, or what kind of possession, or what kind of titles you have in university. Nobody cares when it comes to the court of heaven. None of these things will impress God. Only one thing, if you're righteous or wicked, that's how the judgment is. You give charity to miserable people, or you depress them. You're an honest person, or you're a crook. You observe the Sabbath, which is an eternal covenant between the Jewish nation and God. He gave it to us in Mount Sinai, or you ignored it. You live like a Jew, or you live like a Gentile. You ate kosher, you didn't eat kosher. You're a good husband, or I don't want to say what. So all kinds of things like these all will be judged. After you watch this film, and you know that whatever I say to you will become a fact in your mind. Right now it's still a question, I'm sure. Once it's going to turn into a fact, then come this lecture. This lecture should be the next one. We're mixing the order here. There's nothing we can do. Now comes this lecture to prove to you that really what the Torah said, that there is life after death, is 100% legit, not 99.9. If it's 99.9% legit, then there's still a doubt. Maybe something went wrong here. But I'm going to prove to you now 100% that really the person is a body and soul. The soul would leave the body, and the soul will go to the judgment day. I will prove to you 100%, God willing. So let's start. Don't panic from the Hebrew letters, because as I speak, I translate everything. It's more for me than for you, but you're going to see some interesting other pictures later. According to the Torah, when God created the world, in a 6th day created Adam. So Adam was created from nothing. There was nothing, and now there is Adam. And then he blew into his nostril a living divine soul, eternal soul. There's a concept of reincarnations we're going to speak about soon, that the soul will transform from different physical bodies, but the soul will always be the same soul. Call it X, it will always be X in different boxes. And the woman, what we call Chava or Eve in English, was created from Adam himself to teach the woman in the creation that it's true that she's very important, but her existence is thanks to the man. If there was no man, there was no need for a woman. Since there is a man, God say, a man needs companion, he needs to have a wife, someone to be with him, Ezer kenegdo, as the Torah say, an assistant, plus to deliver babies and all kinds of other things, raise the children, and she has very big responsibilities in Judaism, and her husband has to treat her like a queen, take care of her, buy her gifts, help her, do all kinds of things, of course respect her and love her and give her all kinds of rights that no other women in any other nationality has. If you really know the Torah, the women in Judaism are extra princes, more than what we know today. Some people are very primitive or ignorant, and they think that a woman in Judaism is secondary to a man. Not true. The opposite. The most important thing in Judaism is raising the children to follow the Torah and God's instructions. And the one who is in charge of it are the women. They are the one who are in charge of the most important thing in a house. Man goes, he works, he does all kinds of things, but who raised the children according to God's plan? He puts it in the hand of a woman. Cannot be that she's secondary if she gets the main job in life. And many other examples, but that's not the topic here tonight. So we move on. So according to the Torah, when a person is created, I'm going to read to you parts from the Torah, from Judaism, and then I'm going to show you what the scientific world found. The parapsychologists and many other things. I'm going to show you that everything that they discover in the last 30 years, it's all already in the Torah. So none of the things that they discover, really, it's something new. They just discover it, but it was always in Judaism for thousands of years already. For instance, the Torah starts in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, and God created Adam sent from the ground, and he blew into his nostril a living soul, and he became alive, became a living creature. So what's the right order? First there was a body, like a doll, like you go to the beach, you make an image of a person. And then the divine soul was entered into the nostril, and the person after that became alive. So when we say a living person, means the soul is still in a body. The soul leaves the body, there's no more life. And in the book of Kohelet, King Solomon, it's a part of the Tanakh, it says, "Vayashuv ha'afar el haaretz keshe'haya," and the sand will return to the ground. Now he described death. The sand will return to the ground as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. So the opposite transaction. The soul exit the body, as before he entered the body, now it comes out of the body falls to the ground. A few months later the body becomes sand, no more body, there's only skeleton there. And the spirit, the soul, goes back to the court of heaven, to the same God who gave it. Now, one more thing to clarify before I will read to you what the screen says, is that when the Jews received the Torah in Mount Sinai 3,300 years ago, they received the Ten Commandments, the written Torah, up to the chapter of Jethro, only part of the written Torah. The rest was given in 40 years in installments. Every few years another part was written by Moses until the last day of his life he concluded it, and that was the written Torah. So a large portion of it was given already, and every few months or few years God called him into the big tent, the holy tent, and he said, all right, another chapter, write another chapter, until the Torah was concluded, 304,805 letters. But the written Torah is literally worthless completely without reviewing the oral Torah. Judaism mainly is oral Torah. What does it mean, oral Torah? The Torah gives us 613 commandments that a Jew has to keep. Today, most of them does not apply because we don't have the temple, sacrifices, all kinds of things. So take away right away 400. But in general, all these commandments, none of them has any instructions in the Torah, none of them, how to keep it. For instance, the Torah says you have to observe the Sabbath. It's the eternal covenant between God and the Jewish nation for eternity, that I created the world in 6 days, and the 7th day I rested. Don't dare to violate the covenant. If you violate the covenant, you exclude yourself out of Judaism, out of my nation, and you have no share to the world to come. That's a verse inside the Torah. So how do I keep the Sabbath? No instruction, nothing. You understand what's happening here? A person loses eternity, and the Torah doesn't describe how to observe the Sabbath. So even a foolish person wouldn't make such mistakes, definitely not God. But it's not once, it's 613 times. Be careful not to do A, B, C. Be careful not to do X, Y, Z. This is the punishment. How to do? No instruction. You should do no instruction how to do. You should have a sign on your hand, doesn't explain what sign. How do we know? Tefillin, black, you have to put on your head. No instructions in the Torah, where, what hand, how to make it, from what animal, what to write inside, nothing. Obviously, every clever person understands there's missing information. Where is it? The oral law. Why God did not put it in the same book, everything. The size of the book will be all the way from here to Tel Aviv. Because there's so much. Cannot carry such a book. That's why it's divided to different books. But not only that, if the Gentiles will have it in their hand, they don't need to convert. They follow they heard God gave the Jews the Torah. Everyone was impressed. So why do they need to come back to the rabbi 2-3 years to go to a conversion process, testing, this, that, circumcision, mikveh? They can pretend they're Jewish, beard everyone had in those days, women were all modest. All they have to do, make themselves a Jewish name. They already have a book, so they know how to behave, and the world will be destroyed. Why? Because there's a huge difference between where the Jews go when they die and where the Gentiles go when they die. Gentiles can be righteous and wicked. They have 7 laws to keep. Based on that, they have heaven and hell. Jews also, but much bigger test, much bigger reward, but also much bigger punishment. Everything is equal. The Gentiles can convert and become Jews, and they go to the highest level in Judaism. No discrimination. But if they don't want to convert, they want a much easier life, all they have to do is to keep the 7 laws. They believe in one God, not to murder, not to steal, not to worship any idols, to make a police system and a court system, not to eat any raw animal before you first kill them. And if they keep the 7 laws, the Gentiles, they are righteous. So they have heaven according to their level, and the Jews have heaven according to their level. If the Gentiles would pretend they're Jewish after they see that God gave the Jews the Torah, everyone would want to be part of this nation. Nobody in the world today would know if he's a Jew or not. Even now it's big problems. Nobody can know 100%, especially from countries like India, Russia, places that the Jews intermarried the Gentiles. It's very difficult to know who is originally a Jew and who's not. Arab countries, most likely they know that they never got mixed with any one of the people that lives there. But European countries, very difficult. Before the Holocaust, there was massive amount of intermarriage. So there are people today that their grandmother was not Jewish, and they're really not Jewish. They think they're Jewish. They go with the Star David. They even come to the synagogue, but they're really 100% non-Jews. And there are many South Americans and Portuguese that are 100% Jewish, and they not even know it. They don't know it. Why? Because of the Inquisition, because of all kinds of problems. So nobody in the world can swear 100% if he's a Jew or a Gentile. Nobody. Not the Gentiles, not the Jews. But if in a time when the Torah was given, it was all in one book, for sure, nobody in the world would have a status of a Jew. No one. Why? Because there would be so many who join Judaism without converting, and their soul is not a Jewish soul, and then the world will be over as far as spirituality, because God gives very serious instructions what a Jew has to do, what a non-Jew has to do. Okay, so the Gemara says, the oral Torah, 3 partners in the creation of mankind: his father, his mother, and God. His father gives the DNA that from here, I say DNA, the Gemara you say material, the stuff that made the bones, the ligaments, the nails, the brain in the head, and the white in the eyes. The mother, from her contribution, you get the flesh, the skin, the hair, the pupils inside the eyes, and God gives the spirit, the image of the face, the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to walk, to talk, wisdom, intelligence. All the spiritual things God gave. All the physical things people gave. Right? So the Gemara says like this. Once the time for a person came to leave the world, comes God and take his share, and his father and mother's share is left there, and it's worthless. There's nothing you can do. So when God takes the soul and the spirit, you cannot see, you cannot hear. And this is very interesting, because now we understand which parts of our body and spirituality comes from the Father, from the Mother, and from the Creator of the world. As I mentioned before, there are 613 commandments, and 3 of them are restrictions not to disturb the dead people. From the 613, deduct 3. 3 are dedicated as a warning to the Jews: do not call the dead people and ask them questions. What an intelligent person understands right away. If God gave us a book in public in front of millions of people and spoke to Moses and all of us heard it, and inside the book he said, be very careful not to call the dead people and ask them questions, don't I know that I cannot speak to a dead person? I need a Torah to tell me this. So what we understand from here? That there is a way to communicate with the dead people. Doesn't matter right now, I don't know how. I don't know how. But there is a way to communicate with the dead people. That means they're existing somewhere. They're not dead like we thought. 3 different verses. One, it's called Lo yimatzeh becha. You should not have among you shoel of, that's one way, idoni udoresh el hametim. 3 different ways to communicate with the dead people. Today we call it seance, medium, more modern words, but it's the same lady with a different dress. So the idea is the same idea, just that the parapsychologists, they invented all kinds of Latin words for it. But according to the Torah, this is the original expression. Shoel of, idoni, vedoresh el hametim. 3. In Deuteronomy 18, verse 10 to 11. That's where it appears. In the book of Yov, a part of the Tanakh, the Bible, is the book of Yov. Yov wasn't a Jew. He was a Gentile prophet, righteous Gentile prophet, which God gave him some prophecies, was a righteous man. And like I said, there's no discrimination. You're Gentile, you're righteous, you're extra righteous, you'll be an integral part of my Tanakh. Doesn't matter that you're not a son of Jacob, no problem. You're a righteous man, you deserve to have a prophecy. The Gentiles have 7 prophets altogether. You understand, in history. The Jews, 48, 6 of them are female. See, there's no discrimination. If a woman is extra righteous, she's modest, she's pure, and she deserves to have a prophecy, like Devorah and other. Sarah, they get a prophecy. God gives them a prophecy. So like you see, it's really no discrimination. It just depends what you achieved with your efforts or not. That's how it goes. So the book of Yov, he say, my alphabet is ligaments and bones, and this is my alphabet, flesh and skin. So who am I? If my alphabet is flesh and skin and bones and ligaments, so what's left? Who am I? A soul, obviously. And the book of Isaiah, chapter 2, Min ha'adam asher neshama be'apo, from the human being that has a soul in his nostrils. So, mentioning the soul again. The Torah continue. When the baby is in his mother's womb for 9 months in a time of pregnancy in Hebrew you say herayon. Hey, Resh, Yud, Vav, Nun. Herayon. What's herayon? Numeric value, 271. Hey, it's 5. Resh, it's 200. Yud, it's 10. Vav, it's 6. Nun, it's 50. Together, 271. The most frequent pregnancy, 9 months, 271 days. So the words in Hebrew are all divine words. It's a divine language. Every word has lots of secrets about it. For instance, snake. How do you call snake? Nachash. What does it mean, nachash? 2 words. Nach, chash. You combine them together, it becomes nachash. What's nachash? Nach means rest. Chash means hurry. Before he attack, he first pause, and then he attacks. First he picks up his head, and boom. And so that second that he rests, nach, rest. Then chash. That's why I call nachash. Sus. Why do I call him sus? Horse. Sas lakrav, happy to go into a battle. When they give the sign, the horses are the first one who run into the war, knowing they may die. Not other animals run away, but they run into the fight. So every word in the divine language, Adam. Why Adam? His name is Adam, first human being. Because he was taken from the Adama. Adama means the ground, the sand. Adam, Adama, came from the ground. Understand? Everything is it's not like the languages that human being made that has no logic and no common sense and lots of contradictions. This is a only divine language. God created the world with the Hebrew language. All the other languages is just an interpretation which has lots of problems in this kind of interpretation. So the Gemara says, when a baby is in his mother's womb for 9 months, he's folded and has like a spiritual candle above his head, and he's able to see and communicate and see the entire world spiritually. He learns Torah 9 months with the angel. The angel teach him the entire Torah. Once the time for him come to the world, the angel tap on his top lip, and he gets out of his mother womb, and he comes to the world, and he makes him forget all the Torah, and now you have to earn the Torah with lots of efforts. This is what the Gemara says. Today, it's already been proven scientifically that the baby is feeling and hearing everything the mother does. Not only that, the baby is reading the mother's mind. They made an experiment. everybody knows when you're pregnant you don't want to smoke. It chokes the baby. They have a sonogram that when a woman smokes, how the baby suffers inside. So they see every time she smokes. Then they made an experiment. They told her, tell us when you're thinking about taking a cigarette. Before you even light it. Just when you think, where is my cigarette? Signal to us. Before she even light the cigarette, the baby is already shrinking and preparing for the smoke to come. Means it connects to his mother womb. And all kinds of, to his mother mind. So all kinds of things like this that today we know. Classical music make them more intelligent. Horrible music make them, I don't want to say what. So all kinds of things in affecting the baby. If a woman is extra nervous, she does all kinds of things. She screams, she yells, all these things. It's affecting the personality of this baby. So over here we have a baby. And is able to learn the entire Torah, and when the time for him comes, he comes out to the world. 500 years ago was a legendary Kabbalist, his name Rabbi, the Yitzchak Luri Ashkenazi, the Ari HaKadosh. He had a student, Rabbi Chaim Vital, that everything the Ari say, he wrote. That everything we know today in the world about Kabbalah comes from him. If he wouldn't come to the world, probably nobody would know what Kabbalah is even today. So everything that we say, he's the source.
Before Shimon Bar Yochai?
No, before, of course, there was Kabbalah always, but he's the one who published it and opened all the mysteries in Kabbalah nobody knew. It's a very special soul. So he writes in his book, the person is not what you see. Arizal, yeah. The person is not what you see. Body, eyes, hair, ligaments, flesh, skin. That's only the outfit, the cover, the clothing of the person. The soul is the human being, and everything around the soul is just the suit. And the tailor, which is God, designed the suit according to its soul. Handsome, not so handsome, tall, short, this, that, all that. Once the time for a person came to live, the soul exits the body, so the soul separates from the physical cover, which is the body. And then when the soul goes up to the spiritual world, it gets a different cover. This cover called Chaluka de Rabbanan, special kilt outfit, that it's not physical. It looks like the body of a person, but there's no material. If you try to grab it, there's nothing to grab because it's 100% spiritual. So the lecture tonight is including 5 different elements. 5 different ways to prove there's life after death. A, clinical death, what we call out-of-body experience. B, seance, communication with the deceased people with different technology. C, reincarnations. D, regressions, hypnosis, hypnotizing people, hypnosis. And regressing them back to time that they were young or even before they were born. I'm going to show some examples. And the 5th one, usually I never get to it, it's dibukim. What does it mean, dibuk? Dibuk means that a person is normal like us, and he has a free choice, and he has one soul in his body, and God is testing him every second of his life, what he does, what he doesn't do. And all of a sudden, an extra soul enter his body out of nowhere, and now there are 2 souls in one body, which is like 2 captains on one plane. One pushed the other one from the chair and turned the plane to Iran. Then the other one pushed him from the chair and turned it to Israel. And like this, the plane is going like this. 2 people try to take control on the chords, on the vocal, on where to go, what to do. It's very interesting. 2 souls trying to take the body according to their choices. How something like this happened? It looks like a serious defect, no? How? No. It's a punishment. It doesn't happen coincidentally to someone.
Is that schizophrenia?
No. Schizophrenia is a mental problem. But this is 2 different souls. A man speaks and then a woman speaks. From the same throat. Different voices, sometimes different languages, sometimes a complete different accent. All of a sudden a man speaks, sounds like a black man. Very heavy voice with black accent. All of a sudden, a white female with complete different American accent. 2 things from the same throat. Very scary, very scary.
Do they know that there's 2 in them?
Well, when one takes control, the other one is eliminated. You understand? So there's a way to talk to both of them. When one is unconscious, you talk to him. Then when the other one takes control, you talk to him. And you ask him, who are you? Why you enter? What do you want? So he say, usually this is souls who suffer very much after they die from being very wicked. It's called kaf hakela. The Torah says, ve'et nefesh harasha ikla'ena bekaf hakela. The soul of the wicked person, God takes like a slingshot. There's a slingshot with the angels, and they send him all over space in the world, and he has not 1 second rest. Measure for all the sins he did, how many people he affected, how many miserable people are there because of him. So now it's measure for measure. So how come sometimes he enters the body? Because when they enter the body, they don't suffer anymore. When they're out of the body, the angel torture them. When they're inside the body, they are protected, so they don't want to come. So you have to bribe them to come. How you bribe them to come? You promise them that you say Kaddish for them, you make a special prayer for them, and you correct their soul for them. Otherwise, they continue to suffer forever. That's why the Jewish custom, we see Shiva and 30 days, and we say Kaddish for 1 year. None of it is customs like people think. It's all very deep secrets, which each one does his impression in life. So, what does it mean, clinical death, out-of-body experience? What does it mean? According to science, according to the medical world, and I know some of you are doctors, so you probably would understand more what I'm talking about. According to the scientific world, what does it mean to be dead? How you define death? The truth is, nobody knows. Nobody in the world knows the time of death 100%. Why? Even the rabbis don't know. It's big arguments about it. Doctors for sure don't know. Why? Because there are big arguments when the person is considered dead. How can something like this not be clear? If the Torah gave us the answer to every question, how come we don't know what's the time of death? The answer is, when the Torah was given, there was no equipment like today. No ways to revive a person with oxygen and all kinds of equipment. When the Torah was very simple, the Torah says, a person who breathes by himself is alive. Once he stops breathing, that's it, he's dead. And it was very simple. There's no doubt 1,000 years ago if a person is alive and dead. Today, with the development of advanced equipment, the dilemma started. Because the person really by himself died and stopped to breathe. But we somehow connected all kinds of things to him, and we give him another month of life. That month of life, is it considered life or is already dead? Because according to himself, he was dead. It created a dilemma. The more we become technologically advanced, we create many problems to ourselves. One time I had in my lecture, the controller of New York State, Alan Havesi, came to my lecture. We argued for 45 minutes in a philosophical argument. By the end of the argument, I asked him after the lecture, what do you think? He said, I still have some doubts. The argument was if the Torah is divine or no. He said, I still have some doubts. I told him, let's sit one-on-one and I clarify your doubts. So after we sat for 3 hours one-on-one, he admitted everything is 100% divine. Now I got the point. But in that conversation, I told him that really there's a big argument between the Sephardi and the Ashkenazi rabbis in Israel. If you're allowed to take an organ from a person that we know is going to die in 2 hours and save the life of another Jew that will die also. So what's better, to lose both of them, or at least to take one part from one person who will die anyway, there's no way to cure him, and at least save one out of the two? The problem is that we rush the time of death of the first one, even by 1 minute, by 2 minutes, by 2 hours. Are we allowed to murder one person with our hand to give life to another person? That's a big argument. So there's big arguments. Some say pikuach nefesh, you're allowed because anyway he's dead. And the only reason he's alive because he's connected to machines. So he's already dead. You're not really killing him. So he's already officially dead. So it's a very complicated argument. When he heard that argument, he almost fainted. He told me in the 70s, I sent a question like this to a judge in the Supreme Court and asked him to define finally in the Constitution what's the time of death. And what did the judge say? Dear Mr. Havesi, have mercy on me. Don't let me play God. What do you want me to write something? You want me to mess with God? The judge was clever. You know, who am I to know? Nobody knows. No rabbi knows. No priest knows. Nobody knows really. Because with the equipment, it became very confusing. But one thing everyone agree. If you have 5 symptoms at the same time, then you're for sure dead. What are the 5 symptoms? 1, no heartbeat. The heart is not working. At the same time, no brain waves, no activity in the brain. Third one, their brain does not receive any more oxygen from the lung. No oxygen arrives to the brain anymore. Fourth symptom, minutes after, body temperature drop. It was 38 Celsius, 37, 36, 35. It's going down by the minutes or by the hours. That means that's it. It's a symptom of death. And the fifth one, no feelings. You can burn the person, you can pinch him, you can hit him, nothing. Once all 5 symptoms exist at the same person, the same body, everybody understands that he's for sure dead. If 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, there's still an argument. Maybe not yet, the brain, but we don't know for sure. But 5, everyone agree. According to science and to the medical world, if those 5 symptoms exist more than 6 minutes, then the person is for sure permanently dead. And even if it's going to be a miracle that he's coming back to life, he will have all his memory cells erased. Everything, no memory, doesn't remember his name, he cannot function anymore. Anyway, his life is finished. He's alive, but he's really not alive. But today, in this generation, there is a very interesting phenomena that's happening. Very interesting. There are many, many millions of people in the world, if you gather. In percentage-wise, it's not a lot, but it's a massive amount of people. More than 30 million people reported. This lecture was prepared 15 years ago, so today it's probably 60 million. But let's go by the old numbers. 30 million people reported clinical death, out-of-body experience. And they came back to life. Many of them were dead for more than 6 minutes and came back to complete normal life, even 45 minutes. Dead completely. All 5 symptoms, no brain waves, no lung, no breath, none of these things, and no heartbeat, and the person came back to life. Very interesting. So, of course, the doctors cannot explain how something like this is possible. There's no explanation. But let's see some of the things that those dead people are saying when they come back to life. Before I go into description of what they say, I'm using the top parapsychologists and psychiatrists in the world, not local ones, the biggest in the world, that wrote many, many books and sold millions of books and are well known in every university. Everyone who make a research about afterlife or about the body and soul and all these things, what we call parapsychology, knows those names. There's no doubt about it. One of the biggest in the world, Dr. Raymond Moody, is a psychiatrist from Virginia University, interviewed 150 people who died and came back to life and conclude his research in a book, Life After Life, was translated to 30 different languages. The psychologist Carlos Osis from the American Union of Psychology interviewed 877 doctors who testified what went through the mind of their dead patients and published his conclusion in a book, The Time of Death, and wrote many articles about it. Dr. Kenneth Ring, as you can see, none of them is Jewish and definitely not an ultra-Orthodox Jew. So it's not a conspiracy. This is 100% scientific evidence, non-Jews, who testify what happened in the hospitals. Dr. Kenneth Ring, professor for psychology from Connecticut University. In 2 years, he investigated 102 cases of clinical death and published the book, Life in the Death. Dr. George Ritchie, the president of the Richmond Academy for Medicine and the head of the psychiatrist unit in Towers Hospital, published his conclusion in a book, The Return from Tomorrow. Dr. Elizabeth Kovler-Ross, the biggest in the world, the biggest, from Detroit, a very, very world-known psychiatrist. She published, after 20 years of research, she published her conclusion in some of her books and wrote many, many articles about it. Dr. Morris Rawlings, the cardiologist from Tennessee University, investigated 300 patients who died and came back to life and published a book, Beyond the Point of Death. Dr. Frank Schoonmaker, cardiologist from Denver University, had a research, investigated more than 1,000 cases of clinical death. What's the mutual elements that, though in the United States alone, 8 million people reported death. Imagine how many did not bother to go to the doctor and say, I was dead for 5 minutes, I was dead for 2 minutes. Some people go back to their life and that's it. But what are the mutual elements that all these people, Jews, non-Jews, from different cultures, all over the world, with no connection between them, they all say the same story, all of them. Is it possible that everyone comes up with the same story and all of them are wrong? Of course not. We have to be serious here. So what are the mutual elements that all of them reported? First, all of them say that from the time that the soul came out of the body, they saw the body on the floor and they saw themselves flying right above the body. Flying right above. It's like a piece of paper in the air, that's how you fly. Slowly, slowly you're rising, and then you get to the ceiling, and then you leave the room, and some of them even went already to the court of heaven. There's few people who already started their trial and came back to life. Most of them didn't get to that point. They're still here in a room, in a hospital. And the next element is that the soul enters a dark tunnel. In the beginning it's very dark. There's a huge long tunnel like a valley. Everything very dark in the beginning. You feel that you're flying in fast speed. And it's an amazing feeling. Later you begin to see light. And the lights become brighter and brighter and brighter, but it's not blinding you. You are able to aim into the light and see an amazing projector that they said they never saw in their entire life anything in this physical world that even come near this huge amount of light. And the light covers you from everywhere, and you feel that you are flying in a tunnel with mutual circles, and you are right in the middle, and you see a huge light, and you feel great attraction to the light, spiritual attraction. And then they saw that the communication with the light is done through telepathy, not words like us with voice. Whatever you want to say, it's already coming out, telepathy, through thoughts. And the light communicate with you and send you messages, and over there it's a different way of communicating. Not like here with the voice. It's just what you want to say, it's already been said. And what he wants to say, it's already been said. Then
Who's he?
the light, we'll see soon who is he. The relatives, oh, they don't? Oh. So the relatives, they begin to see some of the friends and relatives above them, around them, flying in space. Grandmother, neighbor, friend from school, all kinds of familiar people, they see their images. They see all their lives in bright, fast pictures, snaps, one after the other, not like a video, one picture after the other, 1, 2, 3, 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, many pictures since he was a baby until the time of the accident. All of them, with no exception, was able to remember what happened in the time of the accident, where the accident took place, like in a highway in some street, where the body is there. And then when they arrived to the hospital, they were able to report what happened in a place of an accident and in a hospital simultaneously. Even though it could be 20 miles away, they are able to be communicated here and there, because the soul, according to the Torah, has no limitation. All the limitation is body limitation, distance, how far you can hear, how far you can see. But when the soul exits the body, it's 100% divine. There's no physical limitation. So they're able to do things that we cannot understand. For instance, you see millions of pictures since you're a baby until now. In less than a minute you are dead. How you can remember, and how can you see so much information in 1 minute and remember and see your entire life? Not only that, they reported how the operation was done at them. Which doctor cut the chest, which nerve gave the needle, what's the name of that one, his hair is gray, she's blonde, he is 40, she's 50, everything, they know everything, his glasses is like this. They can tell you above the ceiling what wires is disconnected. Of course, the dead person that is laying in a hospital doesn't see what's above the ceiling. They can tell you what happened in every room in a hospital at the same time. Room 701, this patient, his name is such and such. Room 697, someone just died an hour ago. Everything. They can tell you in what closet there's a tennis ball, what's by the windows, what doctor just went into the parking lot, what's on the roof of the hospital. If there is a writing on the roof, they can tell you. Obviously, some people were trying to claim that maybe it's a dream. How can you dream what's on the top of the hospital and give exact information? Of course, nothing to do with the dream here. The person has all the symptoms that we spoke about. So let's move on. And let's read some of the things that they say. I was up. I saw how they work on my body. I saw they connected the shocks to my chest. I saw my body is jumping. And that moment I fell heavily back into my body. And came back to life. I knew I'm dying, but there's nothing I could do about it. Nobody heard me. I came out of my body. I have no doubt about it. I saw my body is on a surgery room. I saw the doctors giving up on me. I felt horrible. I did not want to die. I was out of my body, but I knew clearly I can either remain there or can return back to life. All of them, as I said, described the tunnel. Some reported that they remember there was a whistle, like a special noise that was becoming stronger and stronger and stronger as you fly in that valley until you see the light. And another person, I was out of my body. I saw my body in the operation room. In the beginning, I felt horrible. Then I saw that light. In the beginning, it wasn't so bright. Then it became like a huge projector with warmness. But it did not disturb me. I was still able to communicate and see everything that happens in the operation room, all the doctors, all the nurses. It was a huge, beautiful, great light, bright and shiny, full of spirituality, love that I never felt in this life. I felt great spiritual connection to this light, full of mercy. Another person, when I was there in front of the light, I felt so great I did not want to return. Some of them reported that there's a line that everybody understands, because over there it's all telepathy, you don't need to talk. Once you cross that line, there's no more return. As long as you did not cross that line, there's a chance to return to this world. Once whoever crossed that line, finished. It doesn't come back. I saw a light. In the beginning it wasn't bright, then it became stronger. Hard to describe. Cover me, but did not blind me. The light asked me, are you ready to die? I had a feeling that I'm talking to a person, but it wasn't a person, it was the light who spoke. I knew the light knows that I'm not ready to die. I had a feeling that I'm in a test. I felt so great and secure and confidence that it's hard to describe. All of them testified that they saw their relatives and friends coming and welcoming them into the next world. They saw relatives and friends who passed away. They communicate with them through telepathy, no words. They felt that they accepting them with blessing. So there were people who I knew who died. I saw my grandmother and a girl that I knew from school. I saw their face clearly. I felt their presence right next to me. I felt many of my relatives around me, and they all flying around me. They all came to accept me. I saw my friend in my brain, not in my physical body. His image, his hands, his face, his legs, everything. All of them reported that they saw their entire life in a three-dimension film, but it wasn't really a film with movement. It was fast pictures. They saw in the right chronological order. They all testified that even the smallest details in life are very, very clear over there. You don't miss one detail. Things that we don't pay attention here. Everything over there is very, very clear, because the soul, like I said, there's no limitation. The soul accepts all information with no limit. And they all were able to see and understand a massive amount of information. The light called them to re-evaluate their values and their life, and to review key moments in their life, analyze it, and come to a different conclusion than what they have until now. A goy, a non-Jew, this is what he says: I was very, very embarrassed. I was very embarrassed for many things that I saw. They show me what I've done wrong. I felt to myself, I wish I could not have done those things. I wish I can return back to life and correct them. Major disappointment that I did not achieve anything in my life. I did not complete anything in my life. I do not know anything in my life. I'm basically a total loser. That's what the Goy say, non-Jew. Here, I want to add my own comments to what I just read to you. I said before that the Gentiles have a test. And they have to keep the 7 laws. But they also have to follow everything that is required by common sense. Like respecting your parents. It's not one of the 7 commandments of the Goyim, of the Gentiles. But every Goy, every Vinny and Tony understand that his parents raised him, and they brought him to life, and they took care of him, and care for him, and all that. So it's required to respect them. Even the animals understand it. So people, it's needless to say. But it's not one of the 7 requirements. But everything that is subject under common sense, that when the person has common sense, he knows what's right, what's wrong. So they are all judged for that as well. And this Gentile is reporting now that he basically saw his entire life, did not achieve one achievement. Imagine what happened to us, the Jews, that the expectation from us by God is much, much higher, and the strictness is much, much, much higher by us. Because the Torah says, you are my children, I chose you from all the nation to be mine. You are my representative in my creation. I made a covenant with your father Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You cannot imitate and behave like the rest of the nations. You should be holy because I'm holy. There's hundreds of verses in the Tanakh that leaves no doubt, and many Gentiles themselves declare it. If they're honest enough, they all have saying it right there. You are the chosen people. The Torah says it. There's no question about it. And we have a much higher level of requirements. So if the Gentile felt horrible when he finally evaluated his life and saw that he did not achieve anything, how many laws he had to keep? Not that many. Imagine what's going to be with us when we live some kind of a life that has no direction, and we do not basically follow the instruction of God, what to do, what not to do. I would like to continue. So the Dr. Elizabeth Kobler-Ross, she concludes, many people who parts of their bodies were chopped, a person that had no hands or no legs or any other organs from his body was cut, they described that when they left their body as a soul, they were 100% complete in their image, with the hands, with the legs. So only the physical part was chopped, but the spiritual continue. So the soul looks exactly like the body, exactly. But when you cut a part of the body, so what is it like? You have a special energy that is inside the box with a different shape. You chop the hand, the energy continue up to a certain point, but it's not covered anymore. You understand? It's hard to imagine, but that's how it goes. But it gets much better. People who are blind now, and they could not see anything, when they died, they were able to describe everything in color. What do we see? The limitation is right here in the blinds, not really in the soul. The soul always sees. It's divine, it's perfect. The body is limited. There's a block on the eyes that a person cannot see. But when the soul goes out of the box, no more block, no more limitation. Gets better than that. People who were born blind since they're babies. Can you take a person who never saw colors in his life and tell him, can you describe to me the color blue? He can never describe any colors. He doesn't know. Try to explain to him, it's like the sky. What's sky? It's like the water. What's water? How the water looks. He doesn't know. Green. No matter how you try to describe to him colors, he doesn't have it in his computer. He doesn't know what to imagine. How is it possible that this kind of people who died and they were blind all their life, that 5 or 10 minutes that they were dead and they came back to life, they describe in colors? The other ones who became blind at a later age in their life, I understand, because they remember color from 20 years ago. So they know what they saw. But the one who never saw colors, when he comes back now to life, how does he know to describe? The doctor has gray hair. How does he know what gray? He never saw color his entire life. What do we learn from here? His previous lives as well. Otherwise, how does he know color? There's no way to imagine it. So we'll see soon what I'm talking about. Then blind people from birth, described to me precisely what people were wearing, what color their clothing, what jewelry they have. A chemist that became blind in an explosion in his lab died and came back to life and described everything in color. Is it possible that people could have known it without the soul exiting the body? Of course not. Now, watch this film for a minute and we go back.
What happens after we die? Is there an afterlife? Obviously a vital question. And most Americans believe there is. According to an ABC News poll, 90% of us say death is not the end. Certainly wasn't for Don Piper, who was pronounced clinically dead after a car crash back in 1989. Mr. Piper was even put in a body bag. What happened after that is an amazing tale chronicled in his best-selling book, 90 Minutes in Heaven. I spoke with Mr. Piper a few days ago. So, Mr. Piper, you're driving down a narrow lane, you see a tractor trailer coming dead at you. Pick it up from there.
Well, I was hit head on. I had no idea. It was a narrow highway. I had nowhere to go. I'm on a bridge. He hits me head on with such impact that the wheels of the driver's side of the truck roll over my car, crush me in it, shove it up against the railing of the bridge, and I'm killed instantly.
Now, when you say you were killed, you're sitting here.
Yes.
So, I mean, what's the definition of you being killed?
Well, there was a 4-car pileup, so as it happened, 4 sets of EMTs came out to the bridge location to check on everybody. Everybody else was fine except me, so they all focused on me, and they all did all the tests at their disposal. They all concluded the same thing. I was a fatality. The body was covered up with a waterproof tarp because it was raining, and they waited for someone to come and take the body away.
All right, so you were actually covered head to toe, no breathing hole or anything. You're there.
No.
Now,
No.
so you're, according to these medical people, done. Then what happens in your mind? What's going on in your mind?
Well, immediately I was standing at some magnificent gates surrounded by people I had known and loved in life. So when I saw them, I knew where I was because I knew where they were. I knew I was at the gates of heaven.
Now, when you saw people that you had known who had passed away before you, were they in human form, body form?
In a sense, they were. They were all fully recognizable as themselves. So yes, they were tangible. I could see them, and they were all perfect. Many of them I had known in life had died at an elderly age, or maybe they had a traumatic accident themselves. But when I saw them, they were all ageless.
But you say in your book you didn't see God or Jesus or anybody like that.
In the distance, as I was approaching the gate, I'm often asked about this, as you might imagine. There really are a lot of magnificent structures inside the gate, and at the pinnacle of a great hill beyond them is a bright light. I have the distinct feeling that is where God, and I was headed in that direction when suddenly I was returned to earth.
Now, how did that happen? You were returned to earth how? What do you remember?
All I remember is being at the gates and about to enter after a lot of other magnificent things that I saw and heard. As it turns out, 90 minutes after the truck hit me, a man climbed into the car, and because he felt like God spoke to him, and started praying over me even though he knew I was dead. Suddenly I found myself back in the car, under the tarp, in the dark. He's singing a hymn, and he's making me sing it with him, and I had no idea what had happened to me.
What about a doctor, a scientist, somebody saying to you, look, you had a head trauma, and when you have a head trauma, all things, and you were a believer from the jump. I mean, very religious man. This was in your mind. Head trauma, hallucinations. It's real to you, but it isn't really real.
Well, it's actually the most real thing that's ever happened to me. It now defines my reality here. I know that how temporary this is. I mean, we know we all do. None of us gets out of this life alive.
What I guess the bottom line is, if somebody doesn't believe you, and some people watching right now are not going to, is there anything you can do or say to make them believe?
This is a very remarkable, unique situation. I saw things there that I wouldn't have expected to see if I was having a dream. I saw people there that I didn't expect to see. There were a lot of things about my experience that convinced me in no uncertain terms that is reality, and this is fleeting, this is passing. I can't wait to go back there. I didn't want to come back here.
Mr. Piper?
Okay, so we just saw an example of a Gentile, a non-Jew, who died in a horrible accident. You saw he was already in a body bag. And he described exactly what happened to his soul from the time, he died and came back to life. And this is one out of millions of cases like this. Like I say, in different cultures, people reporting all kinds of things like this. And the conclusion of Dr. Elizabeth Kovler-Ross is that I know beyond any doubt that life continues after the physical death. Those who are open to hear will hear, and those who block their ears will be very surprised. There is definitely life after death. Dr. Kenneth Ring, I believe that we continue to remain after the physical body. So the conclusion so far, there is a divine, a spiritual energy inside a person, what we call soul, or in Hebrew neshama, and remain to live after the time of death of the body, so far. Now let's see what the Torah has to say about everything I showed you. So far we only spoke about the scientific world, the parapsychology. The Gemara says in Masechet Psachim, Rav Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yoshua, became sick and died. When he came back to life, his father told him, what did you see? He said, everything over there is the opposite. Important people over here are nothing there, and people who nobody pays attention here are very important over there. He told him, no, over here it's the opposite. Over there it's the world of the truth, his father told him. Then he say, I heard that they announced that everyone who came here with Torah knowledge is a very lucky person. As just that the Torah said, that learning of the Torah is the highest level of commandments. So this is an example in the Gemara 2,000 years ago that a person died and came back to life. But it gets better. Rabbi Krospadai, a different rabbi, they thought he died. Then he woke up. He was dead completely. He woke up and started to describe the elevation of his soul to the upper worlds and the beginning of his trial until he returned to life. This is in the Zohar, in Rabbi Krospadai, died and comes back to life. Let's see what the Kabbalah and the Gemara has to teach us about what happened to the soul from the time of death. When the soul exits the world, it goes into a cave, and that's the entrance to the next world. 3 days after the time of death, the soul flies above the body and think maybe there's a chance to return. All 7 days, the soul travels between the body, the cemetery into the house, back and forth. That's why we see Shiva, because the deceased father or mother that just passed away, he sees who really cared that they die and who counts the money that they left. They see everything you say, they see how you behave, they're right above your head, they go back and forth and they see everything, which is very interesting. The Gemara say, Rabbi Dosa say, Ne'emar ki lo irani ha'adam v'chai. In the book of Exodus 33, it says, a person cannot see me and stay alive. There is no bigger difficulty than the separation of the soul from the body. And a person cannot die until he sees the light of God. Once he sees the light of God, his desire to the light of God is so strong, and the soul lives right there, leaves the body. And this comes from the Zohar in a chapter of Kedoshim. When the time for a person came to leave the world, the soul exit the body and see the light of God. Out of desire and happiness to see this light, if he's righteous, he stick to that light. If not, later the light will disappear, then he will stay to mourn of the separation from his body. This is the Zohar in chapter of leprosy, Metzorah. 2,000 years ago, everything I showed you up to now, according to science, it's maximum 30 years old. That's it. This is 2,000 years. Everything now I'm showing is at least 2,000 years old. All right? When the next world has no limitation. No walls, no ceilings, no distances, none of these things. The Gemara continue, when a righteous person passed away, God comes to all the righteous people and say to him, come in peace, welcome him in peace. This is in Ketubot, in the Gemara, page 104. When a person died, he gets permission to see all his relatives, not all. He sees relatives and friends from this physical world and recognize them. Remember what all these goyim reported? They all say, I saw my grandmother, I saw my friend, I saw a girl from my school. This is already, as you can see in the Gemara, way before what the parapsychologists discovered. And they are the same image like they were here. So even though they're not physical anymore, but you can still recognize them with the spiritual image, because the soul looks exactly like the body without any material. If he's righteous, everyone is happy for him and welcome him and walk with him. And the Gemara says in the chapter of Brachot, page 28, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, the president of Israel, he say, prepare me a chair from Chizkiyahu, the king of Judah. He comes to welcome me to the next world. I used to have a student in yeshiva here in Monsey, and one time he told me, when he was a beginner in yeshiva, he told me how his father died. So they live on the second floor in Israel. And his father, before he died, like an hour before he died, he was very panicking, looking like around the room. And his father was telling him, Yitzchak, why the neighbor is in the room? He said, which neighbor? So he said the name of the neighbor from the first floor. So he told him, no, you're hallucinating. There's no neighbor here. It's only me here. He said, no, I'm telling you, I see the neighbor. The entire hour he cared about why the neighbor, a woman from downstairs, she's in a room. Later, when he passed away, they found out that an hour before his father passed away, she passed away. Saw her soul already. He was half in his body, half out of the body. The soul already started to see things, which is very interesting. Then, when a person leaves the world, God brings all his actions in front of him. Remember what they say, that they saw their entire life from A to Z, millions of pictures, one after the other, in a chronological order, from the time they were crawling on the rug until the accident or until time of death. So God brings him all his actions in front of him and asks him, do you confirm that this is what you did in this day? Yes or no? Of course, everyone confirm over there. It's not the Supreme Court or downtown here that you can fool the judge. Over there, he cannot lie. Everything is going to be revealed. So he say, you confirm it? And a person say, of course. And then God makes him sign. You're going to be judged for this and for that, for murdering, for raping, for stealing, for robbing, for this, for that. All kinds of things that we all do, unfortunately. But we have to understand that you didn't get away with that. Maybe the police doesn't know, but there's other police which is much more severe. When the time for a person comes to leave this world, God comes to him and say to him, write and sign everything you did, because you're going to pay for what you did. And he signed and he puts his stamp there. This is in Yalkut Shimoni, 1800 years ago. A person should always know what's above you. There is an eye who watch over you, and a ear who listens to you, and everything you do is recorded in the book of God. This is the conclusion. King Solomon, the smartest person ever lived. What did he say? I tried everything, I had everything. What didn't he have? 1,000 women, wealth, brilliance, everyone bowed down to him. The most important person in the world. We don't have anyone in our generation to this level, what he was in his time. And what's his conclusion? His will. It's in the Tanakh. Sof davar hakol nishma. In the end, everything will be heard. Fear God, listens to him, follow his instruction, because this is what human being is all about. And another place he wrote, I tried everything, I tasted from everything, and I conclude it's all hevel avalim, it's all nonsense. All the things that we are dying for. Vacation, these, cars, houses, yachts, all these things, sports, we give our life for it. People are killing for this status. What's happened in the end? When they separate from this world and they say goodbye to this, the pain is much, much greater than someone who didn't live it. And the person thinks, there's still time, I'm still young. Shimon Peres is 89 years old or 90 years old. Still have plans to live until 500 years old. He still have plans, he makes meetings, he thinks maybe we'll buy development, we'll build buildings. A person never thinks tomorrow I'm dying. Doesn't matter what age you are, you still think you're going to still be around for a long time.
Facebook. Now Facebook.
Yeah. Facebook he opened. I see what you mean. No, I mean, nothing personal against him. It's every person like this. Just saying, a person can be 90, can be 100, he can still think, I'm here for a long time. Because this is the way the evil inclination present the person the reality to the person in a twisted way. Everything you say in front of the dead person, he knows and he hears. It's a dead body in a funeral. People cry, people say Kaddish, people say eulogy. Everything he knows, everything he hears, until you cover his body with the sand. But he still has some ability, even though the body is covered with the sand, to hear a little more until the worms will finish to eat the body, which may take up to 11 months. 11 months. This is in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, page 152. Amar Rav le Rav Shmuel. Rav say to Rabbi Shmuel Bar Shilat, in the time of my death, please make me a respectable eulogy. Why? Because I will be above your head and will hear everything you say. So basically, I just showed you before all kinds of examples of people who describe what happened to them when they're dead, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, and everything that they describe is word by word according to the Torah. So the Torah knew it way before all these parapsychologists and their research, all these cardiologists. The Torah knew about it, the Torah wrote about it, and the Torah is the book of the creator of the world. Everything it says, it's 100%. Now the Rambam explained the 3 commandments, the 3 restrictions, I should say, from the 613 restrictions I said before that God said to the Jews, do not disturb the deceased people. Don't call them, don't ask from them questions, don't do all kinds of things to be able to communicate with them. So a clever person right away understand, if God told me, dear Jew, be careful not to call the dead people, that means they are somewhere, they never died. That's number 1. Number 2 is there's a way to communicate with them. Number 3, they can tell me information that I myself cannot achieve in this physical world. Number 4, I'm not allowed to do it. Number 5, what's going to be if I'll do it? I die young. That's the punishment. People who communicate with the dead people, they usually die very young. All kinds of tragedies. The Torah has one discussion between 2 legendary Jews, Prophet Samuel and King Saul. How did they speak? Prophet Samuel died already. He was already in the next world, in heaven. But tomorrow there's a war with Amalek, and King Saul was very, very nervous, panicking, what's going to happen? And he went to a woman. He pretended that he's just another citizen, put a custom that she won't recognize him as a king, because they're afraid of the king to do such a thing in Israel. It was against the law. So he pretended he's one ordinary person, and he went there, and he told her, I want to speak to Shmuel. And all of a sudden, Shmuel showed up. And the woman was communicating between them, what we call today medium. And he asked him, tell me what's going to be tomorrow in the war. It's in the Tanakh. So he told him, first thing that Prophet Samuel said to him, he got very angry at him. He said, why did you disturb me to return me back to this world? That's the first question he asked him. So he told him, I'm very sorry, I'm panicking, tomorrow there's a war, I don't know what to do. He said to him, tomorrow you and your children here with me. That means all of you will die tomorrow in a war. He told him that. So that's the bad news, that you go to a war and you know you're not coming back. What's the good news? We all will die to be with Prophet Samuel in the same level. The Gemara says equal like Moses and Aaron combined in his level. So that means he's in the highest level. So, you know, if God comes to me and says, listen, tomorrow you're going to die, but don't worry, I put you with Prophet Samuel, I don't think I'll be too upset. You know, can I get there on my own? Probably not. So that was the bad news, but the good news is that he told him, you're coming here with me. And that's what happened exactly. So we see, this is an example from the Tanakh, there's a way to communicate with the soul.
How long did he die after?
Few years. He was dead already for few years, and then he called him from heaven. He disturbed him. The Chazal explained that Prophet Samuel was afraid that God reopened his case. You already got your reward. All of a sudden, you come back to this world, you get very nervous, don't know what's happened. Prophet only knows divine things when God reveals it to him. When a prophet doesn't have a prophecy right now, it's just an ordinary chacham. He doesn't know everything. Now Rabbi doesn't know everything in the world. But when he saw all of a sudden he's back to this world, he got very nervous. That's why he told him, why did you disturb me to call me?
No, when did Saul die after he spoke?
The next day. The next day. So the Rambam Maimonides, he writes, what are the 3 ways to communicate with the dead? One is person who starves himself, is fasting, he goes, he sleeps in a cemetery until the impurity spirit sticks to him. And then he's able to communicate with the dead people. That's the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 65. The Rambam continue in the Laws of Idols Worshipping, chapter 11, provision 13. It says like this: everything that a Jew would do for the dead person to come and inform him anything, it's a violation, as the Torah warns us not to do it. Therefore, the holy descendants of Israel should never try or do anything like that. So you may ask me, so why are you showing us? Don't worry, we did not do those experiments. We only learn from the experiments of the Goyim, of the Gentiles, that do it all the time. Whatever they discover, I show you that the Torah already spoke about, which is 100% legit. What does it mean, medium? As a middleman, there are some people who can go into trance, they can get numb and lose conscious, and then they communicate between you and a dead person who died. You can ask questions and the dead person answer the questions. You can ask private questions that nobody knows between you and this deceased person, such as father, let's say. A father took you once to a doctor and he had a conversation with you in a waiting room. Nobody heard that. So you can tell him, tell me, can you remember what you told me when we went to Dr. X? And now he tells you through this middleman, and you know that your father is right there. So there's no way to make mistakes here. Or do you remember what you bought me for my bar mitzvah? And he described everything, where it took place. So how does she know this woman? She doesn't know you. She doesn't know your bar mitzvah 40 years ago. She doesn't know. So obviously you can see right away that those things can be tested. There are many famous ones in the last 200 years. We will focus on 2 of them. One is Mrs. Leonora Pfeiffer, and the other one, Mrs. Eileen Gart, 2 non-Jewish women that had a very high level of ability to communicate with the dead people. And Leonora Pfeiffer from Boston, she communicated between her customer to their relatives 40 years. 7 different groups of investigators were following her and doing all kinds of tricks to see if there's any scam here. All 7 of them came with the right conclusion that she obviously has spiritual abilities and she's able to communicate with dead people. The psychologist, the philosopher, Dr. William James from Harvard University, he hired the spiritual union in London, and he asked them, he told them about the amazing news that he found a medium to communicate with his relatives who passed away. And he says, everything is based on my investigation. I double and triple check everything that she said, and I know 100% she had no way to know it unless if she received it from the people who passed away. I have to skip some because time is running out, but I just want to get the idea. This is some of the experiments that she did. In the middle of one of the communications, a captain, they didn't call him, a soul of a captain, a spirit of a captain of a boat that crashed in the middle of the ocean, came and started to give information how the boat crashed and how all the people died. And they went and reopened the investigation, and they found that all the conclusion of the investigators were all wrong. There was some extension that they put in the middle of the boat, and it created complications, and that's how everyone died. So in the middle of the communication with person A, a different person showed up and started to give information. There are some mediums who are reporting through automatic writing. What does it mean, automatic writing? We have to understand. You have to imagine the medium that is basically asleep. It's not functioning now, what's happening here. So his head is down, and he's holding a pen, not like a person holds a pen when he writes. They're holding the pen like this, very loose. And after communicating, they are calling a spirit of a person, the pen begins to move. Not, the person doesn't move it, he's asleep. The pen begins to move and write things. So there are something that called automatic writing. In the middle of a trance, a musician comes and moves and create musical notes, such as Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, all kinds of famous classical writers. And they write their musical notes of the famous classical music that they wrote. The American medium Rosemary Brown, she has no formal knowledge in music. She wrote very complicated music like Chopin, Debussy, Brahms, Bach, Beethoven, etc. How did she do it? She never learned music. She doesn't know anything about music. She communicated with the spirits of these composers, these musicians who wrote it for her, and to prove that they still exist. Emma Conti, Italian woman. She received music from the spirit of Emily Dickinson. She won 46 awards from the songs that she wrote, even though she never even went to high school. She wins all the awards, and she said, it's not me, it's the spirit of this famous Emily Dickinson that she tells me what to write. And she was a very famous songwriter. So this is an example of another way to communicate with the dead people. Okay, so like I said before, October 5th, 1930, the boat crashed, and the captain named Erwin started to describe how the boat was crashing. The last thing for today, in the next 15 minutes, we're going to speak about reincarnations. Reincarnations. Now, what's reincarnations? When God created the first soul, the soul started to split. 2, 4, 10, 20, 500, 5,000. All the nations of Israel is one picture, like a puzzle. Each one is connected to the other. The soul is really the person. The soul goes out of the body and goes to the court of heaven. And after that, God decides what to do with us. If He decides to give us another chance to return back to this world, so He reincarnates the soul into a new baby that is about to be born. He finds the right parents, the right atmosphere, the right city, and He sends us back to this world for another 60, 70, or 80 years of life. And the end of that cycle, He will judge us again. And then we'll decide what to do with us. He may give us another opportunity and send us this time, if you're a man, now you can come back as a woman. Jew always come back as a Jew. A Goy always come back as a Goy, with some exception to the rule. But usually there's a rule: Jew is a Jew, a Goy is a Goy. The soul of a Jew comes from one upper world, and the soul of the Gentiles come from a different spiritual world. That's why there's no mixing between them, like I said, with some exception to the rule. Now, one thing we should understand: sometimes the soul is not reincarnated back to a normal body. It comes back as a brain-damaged person, such as autistic children or Down syndrome. What's the difference between us and a Down syndrome person or an autistic kid? What's the difference? We may look alike sometimes, but when we begin to talk or to do something, you know right away, this is normal, this is not normal. The difference is that we are still in the middle of a test, which means everything we're going to do, good or bad, we're going to be judged for it and get a mark. They are not in a test anymore. They are in the middle of paying their punishment. Why they come back like this? Usually it's righteous people. Parents who have autistic kids or Down syndrome, they suffer tremendously. But if they only knew that these kids are the most righteous people, all they have to do is to correct one sin, which is speaking Lashon Hara and listening to Lashon Hara. Gossip. Sins that they made with their mouth and ear, everything else was fine. Keeping Shabbos, donation, learning Torah, everything was fine. One thing they need to correct, so they come back to short life. Usually they don't live such long lives. And they suffer with their mouth and their ear, measure for all the damages they made to others with their mouth and their ears. And that's it. They finish their reincarnations. They go to heaven for eternity, and they are done with this physical world. No more tests. Person who comes back normal and enjoy life doesn't understand what's going to come yet. He's in the middle of a test. He doesn't know Torah. He doesn't know what he lives for, what you expect him to know about the trial. One thing leads to another. You're born, you're ignorant, you know, your parents never send you to yeshiva, you went to public school, you don't know anything, you don't read about Judaism. You think, what's the difference between me and Vinny? What's the difference between me and all the animals? What's the difference? I'm a little bit more intelligent. Let me eat and drink and do whatever I want and finish. That's how most people are. Every person on the street, interview him. What's your dream? To be wealthy. Okay, what's your next dream? To get married. Okay, what's your next dream? To have children. What's your next dream? To be a great athlete. What's your next dream? To be a movie star. 11 or 12 mutual things. Everyone wants the same.
We study Torah and we sin anyway. We study Torah and we sin anyway.
You don't study in the right place. Come to me 1 week, you learn, you see you won't sin anymore. You don't believe me? I'll show you. I have 8,000 emails of people, Jews and non-Jews, started to listen to the lecture on the website. You should see how orthodox they became. People used to be modern Orthodox. When they started to listen to my series, I have all kinds of different series on the website, they became much, much higher in religion.
We have to pray to forgive us?
We have to pray, of course. God gave us one gift, a major gift, is the ability to repent. We can do repentance even for murder, for rapes, for stealing, for everything. We can correct as long as we're alive. Once we close our eyes for the last time, it's over. We miss the train. And we don't know when we're going to die. That's the problem. If we knew, why God didn't tell us the time of death? You know why? Why? Why a person wouldn't know, I live to 80, I live to 70. Why wouldn't? Why? Because if a person knows, I have until 80, what's the rush? I have another 4 years to go. When I be 79 and a half, I'll take all my millions, build yeshivot, give to the poor, give to the rabbis, the rabbi teach in my memory, I'll put tzitzit, put tefillin every day, go learn in yeshiva 6 months, go to the mikveh every day, I'll be the biggest tzaddik. And I die tzaddik. No? Baal tshuva, no? Why do I have to bother? So what's the point of keeping you here? Then God would take us much faster. I put you on a test and you don't want to answer the questions. You have to do something. That's why we don't know. It's a part of the test. But let's go back to what I said. So there are different kinds of reincarnations. There's reincarnations in regular people, like us, which means we still have a free choice. Reincarnation in brain damage, it's a punishment, no free choice. That's why they don't have to put feeling, they don't have to keep shut, they can do whatever they want. They're just paying for what they did. Reincarnations in raw material, or in plants, flowers, trees, fruits, vegetables, etc. And reincarnations in animals. Reincarnation in animals. And
Jews too?
Jews too, of course. Jews and non-Jews.
Souls going to plants?
Yes.
But what can we do then?
Do you think in 1.5 or 2 hours I can teach you the whole thing about souls?
Jews, plants, and non-Jews?
No. Wait. Shh. People starting to get panic here, I see. Maybe let me move on.
Can I ask you 2 questions?
Yeah.
You just say that the soul comes back into somebody.
Yeah.
Now a person died,
Yeah.
and he sees people who died a long time ago, his parents and everything. How could it be if that soul supposed to be already in another person? How could he see his parents? You say the soul has...
Got it. I got the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And number 2.
Yeah.
I had the chance to listen to some lectures, Kabbalah lectures. And there is a discrepancy between what you say now and what I heard.
What did you hear?
I heard that a man cannot be a woman and a human being cannot be an animal.
I can show you a film of a woman that they hypnotize her and she speaks with the voice of a man in a different language.
This is the point. I don't want to argue with you.
You know what?
I'm just saying that...
No, I understand. You have to understand there are rules and there are exceptions to the rule. Jews come back as Jews, Goyim come back as Goyim, but there is an exception to the rule that a Jew can come back as a Goy. Man comes as a man, woman comes as a woman, true, but there is some exception that man can come as a woman can come up as a man. Now a person comes back, one life he can be from the descendants of Aaron, he can be a Kohen, in his next life he can be a Levi, and next life he can be Israel. Not all the time he's going to be Kohen. Body determine who your parents are, your parents gave you life, So you know what you are based on your father, but in the next reincarnation, not necessarily your father is going to be a Kohen. So a person's status is changing according to God's brilliance and how he sets his test for him. But let's go back to the first question that you ask, is that when all these souls, when a person dies and he sees parents, I didn't say that every person who dies right away comes back to life. That's not what I said. Some people can stay 800 years until their next reincarnations. 800 years. Sometimes within weeks they come back. If we continue the lecture, then you see what I'm talking about. Sometimes a person never gets reincarnated back to this world. He goes either to hell or to Kafakela or to heaven, depend. If he's not righteous, if he's very wicked, he goes to Kafakela. Strictly revenge, that the soul flies and there's no rest in space. After that he enters hell. Hell is a dry clean for the soul from all the sins. That's called hell, Gehenom. And after he finishes hell, he goes to heaven based on how many merits and commandments that he kept. That's his level in heaven. So the hell cleans all the negative, and then the soul goes into the place that it deserves. If he comes back again to this world, that means he has another test. You fail the test, you want to be a doctor, they give you 6 months later another test. You fail, I don't know how it works, but they give you another test, like in Israel. Some people went 17 times to learn how to drive a car. Every time they have a test, but at one point they say, you know what, you're a lost case. You just take a cab. Leave us alone. How many times you don't know how to drive a car? You cannot park. Okay, it's not for you to drive a car. They got it already. Same thing here. What do you think? We'll be reincarnated forever. But the fact that we all here, we shouldn't be too happy about it. It's a sign that we're all losers. We had many, many chances and we didn't take it. We think, wow, life is great. Life is great. But you were here 10, 20 times before and you fell constantly. What's so great about it? It wouldn't be better to be in heaven with Rabbi Akiva and his friends? So let's give a few minutes about reincarnation. Time is running out. Some of it I skip. This is things that I mentioned before. Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh Mimodina, a rabbi and a doctor in Italy, in Venice, 500 years ago. He did not believe in reincarnations in the beginning until something happened close to the end of his life. A neighbor gave birth to a kid, baby. Within a month from the time of his birth, became very sick. 6 months after his birth, his time came to die. The neighbor called the rabbi, Rabbi, please come and say Tehillim and words of Torah when the soul of my kid is leaving. He went and saw the kid, 6 months old, in bed, is dying. All of a sudden, the boy opened his mouth and say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and died. 6 months old, never went to yeshiva. In Portugal, a goy, before he died, a baby, he screamed, Viva Juan, some kind of Juan, and this Juan became a king a month later, and the baby died. There are cases, you can count them on 1 or 2 hands from tens of billions of people all over the years. There are few cases of babies who opened their mouth, screamed something, and died. So that's how he started to realize that reincarnation is reality. I'll give you another example. Samson and Delilah. Who is Samson? Chazal says. The Ari explained. Samson is a reincarnation of Nadav, the son of Aaron. Nadav and Avihu died when they served Hashem in the wrong way. Nadav and Avihu didn't want to get married to the Jewish ladies in their time because they claimed that none of them is high enough to their level. So they died single. Nadav in his reincarnation came back as Samson the prophet. What was his end? He married a Goya, a Philistine woman named Delilah. She blinded him, she turned him into the soldiers. You know the story. The Torah says Shimshon Badan. Badan from Shevet Dan. Badan. Badan, if you play with the letters, it's Nadav. Nun, Dalet, Bet, Bet, Dalet, Nun, the same thing, just in the wrong order. That's a hint in the Torah that Samson is actually the son of Aaron in his previous life. Moses, came back as, Moses is actually Hevel. Hevel turned into Moshe many years later, 2,400 years later. Cain turned into Yitro. Cain murdered Moshe because Hevel had two twins born with him. Cain had one twin. He was jealous that he has two females and he has only one. So that's one of the reasons he killed him. Later, he came back to the same generation and he gave him a female, his daughter Tzipora, the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's the daughter of Yitro. Yitro is Cain. Cain returned a girl to Hevel, now in two different bodies. And another part of the soul of Cain went into the Egyptian soldier that was beating up the Jew. And Moshe said the name of Hashem and killed him, as the Torah described, was beating up a Jew. So now Hevel did to Cain exactly what Cain did to Hevel, but in different bodies. First, he received a girl from him. That's a repentance for that issue. And then he killed him. But this time he killed him in a legal way, because he was killing a Jew, and you killed him to save the life of your brother. So there's thousands of cases like this in the Tanakh. Of course, I don't have time to go over it, but just to give you an idea, it's very complicated and actually very interesting. So now, the most amount of evidence is Dr. Stevenson, Ian Stevenson. He collected thousands of cases of kids between 2.5 years old to 4 years old. Once the kids are still young, they remember their previous life. Kids begin to describe their previous life in details without hypnosis. No hypnosis. The kid, 4 years old, comes to you and says, take me to my wife. What your wife? You're 4 years old. What wife? No, I'll show you the way. Abba, take me to my wife. It's very common by the Arab Druze in Israel. In every class, by the Arabs in the villages in Israel, at least one kid, in every class, they made a research, at least one kid remember his previous lives in details. Who he used to be, what's his name, what his job was, everything. Very interesting. Let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about. Indika Gonreta, a boy from Sri Lanka, was born in 1962. Stevenson started to check the case in 1968, 6 years after he was born, and published his conclusion in a newspaper, ASPR, in 1974. He writes, Indika started to speak when he was 2 years old and started to describe his life as a very wealthy businessman from the city of Matara in Sri Lanka. You remember he has a beautiful mansion, a Mercedes, elephants, all kinds of mansions and gardens, and a servant named Parmadaza that used to be his private chauffeur. Indika fathers started to see that his little boy describing himself as a businessman somewhere else. So he went to that city and started to investigate, and he found out that there was a wealthy man with elephants, with the same servant who is still alive, with the car and everything, described exactly as his son described him. He sent a letter to Dr. Stevenson, and he came to continue the investigation, and he found that he used to be KJ Verizinga that lives in Matara and died in 1960. So this guy died in 1960, came back to life in 1962. Where was he 2 years? In a bank of souls. How does it call according to Kabbalah? There are two names for that. One Chazal call it Guf. The Messiah doesn't come until all the souls will come out of this Guf, out of this tank, and will finish their correction. That's one of the Gemara in Sanhedrin. And another place it's called Tohu, that God puts the soul on hold until he finds the right environment to reincarnate him back into the world. Let me show you a film now about a baby who remembers his previous life. I hope the volume will be enough. If not, I will repeat after.
Stories like this, and Dr. Jim Tucker has gathered many of them. We're investigating cases of very young children who usually begin talking about previous lives. They usually begin between the ages of 2 and 3 and continue until the age of 5 or 6. We're looking at these cases to learn as much as possible about this phenomenon.
Jim Tucker is preparing a research trip to meet one of his subjects. A child claiming to remember a past life.
Gus Ortega is a little boy in Colorado who has talked about being his grandfather. This began when he was 18 months old, and he's made a number of statements that seem quite specific. This one is a stronger case because the child has made some very specific statements that it seems very unlikely he could have heard through normal means.
Gus Ortega's case is only one of many.
We've been studying these cases for the last 40 years. We've now collected over 2,700 cases like this. These cases have been found all over in Asia and West Africa. They've been found in South America, in Europe, and the United States, pretty much wherever they've been looked for.
In a place not quite that far away, a hospital in America. An old man is dying. And a young boy believes he is this man reborn. Gus Ortega is a normal 6-year-old. Like most boys, he cherishes his time with his dad. But this relationship is different. Gus remembers that he played with his dad in a previous life. Only then, he was the father, and his dad was his son. This is the case that UVA scientist Jim Tucker is investigating.
Whenever I go to see a case, I go with a certain amount of skepticism. I never go with the assumption that this is reincarnation. And that's also the same approach that I have with the work as a whole. We're here because this is an interesting phenomenon, so we're trying to learn as much about it as possible.
Catch it! Oh, good job!
Grandpa Augie died in 1993. His son Ron found him lying on the floor in his home. A stroke. Grandpa Augie died 5 hours later. He was a shopkeeper. He sold everything people wanted to buy, and he loved his family. But he never met his grandson, Gus. Gus was born 1 year after Grandpa Augie's death. One day, when he was just a year and a half, Gus was alone in his room with his father.
Ron came out and told me that he had just finished changing Augie's diaper, and that he looked right up at him and said, "You know, Dad, when I was your age, I used to change your diaper."
I was flabbergasted, to be honest with you. I thought it was just kind of strange, especially the choice of words to say that phrase, "when I was your age," for this little 1.5-year-old toddler.
He started talking about Grandpa, and just the little things he was saying that we knew he couldn't have known because he never met Grandpa. His grandfather died a year before he was born. So, we were pretty puzzled about it.
Then one day, Ron Ortega brought a set of old photos home, and something even more remarkable occurred.
And I said, "Oh, look at this old photograph." And he came up to it and he goes, "Oh, there's me." I mean, I was like just totally astounded, it just stopped me, cold. I mean, because how would he know that?
Gus would make more statements like that over the course of the next years. He would recollect episodes of his grandfather's life that even Ron could hardly remember. And he was there. Gus knew more about his grandfather than he should have. Is this evidence of reincarnation? How else can these children remember another life? The case files of Dr. Jim Tucker will yield more clues.
Okay, so in case you didn't hear, in 30 seconds, I'll just conclude this. An old man died 1993, and then his son had later a baby boy, And this boy was 1.5 years old. The father was changing his diaper. So the boy said to his father, it's very strange. When I was your age, I used to change your diapers. Which means I used to be your father. Now I'm your son. I used to be your father. Then they started to investigate. He started to describe himself as the old man. And then one time the father brought a picture of the grandfather, and the boy came and said, here is me. And he pointed, and who he used to be in his previous life. This is one out of millions of examples of people who remember their previous life. The last case for today, Shanti was born in New Delhi, in India, 1926. Age 3, she started to describe what happened in the city of Mothra. She claimed that her husband is named Kaidernath. She died in the 10th day after she gave birth to her son. When Shanti became 9 years old, she started to talk non-stop about her previous life. Her parents sent a messenger to Mothra and found out that the husband Kaidernath is still alive. They wrote a letter to him. They told him about the hallucinations of their daughter. One time he showed up in the door, and the little 9-year-old girl started to scream, Kaider! She used to be his wife in previous life. Now she's a little girl. And then she said all the food that she used to cook for him. And then she asked him, why did you get remarried? Didn't we make a deal that if I die, you promise me you'll never get remarried? And he got very embarrassed. And then she went to the backyard, and she took a shovel and she started to dig. And then he was standing over there, and they dig, and in the end, guess what? She said to him, I don't understand, where is the money that I hid here? So he admitted that there was really money there. After she died, he took the money and went and get remarried. So this is, I just made it much shorter than what it is, but just for us to get the understand. So there are people like this. There's many people in the world that remember their previous life without hypnosis. People like us, who wants to know who we used to be in a previous life. How will we know? The answer is, you have to go to a professional parapsychologist. Make sure you take someone with you. Not all of them are reliable, and they sometimes can do things to a person when he's under hypnosis. So make sure you put a guard, especially the women. Make sure you put somebody, a guard there. Once he hypnotizes you, it's called regression. Let's say you are 50 years old. So he says to you, let's go to the year 2000. So you're beginning to talk like somebody 37 years old, 38 years old. What are you doing? I'm a stockbroker. Okay, let's go to the year 1980. So the person that is 50 years old, now remember, he hypnotized him, so he speaks directly to his soul, to his subconscious. And he begins to talk like a 10 years old boy, mamash, with a voice of 10 years old. Then he said, let's go back to the year 1965. What 1965? I wasn't born yet. All of a sudden, sometimes there's silence. You don't hear anything. You talk to him, no communication. Why? The soul wasn't in a body in this world. It was up there. Then you go 1935. All of a sudden he begins to speak French in a complete different voice. And you don't know what he's saying. So you record it. Later, when you bring him back to conscious, you show him that he speaks French. So what am I saying? I don't know. What's this? Oh, you said that you have a store in Paris and this and that. He describes your life precisely. In one reincarnation that I have here, they reincarnated a woman to 9 different lifetimes until the year 1100. She was hiding in the basement of a church with her children, hiding when they did pogroms to the Jews. 9 different lifetimes. Sometimes the people speak in a language that does not exist in the world at all. Nobody knows. They have to bring experts to interpret what they say. Sometimes people have all kinds of symptoms in this life that are really from the previous life. Like Vivian from Sao Paulo, 1963. Every time an airplane comes, she jumps under the table and she goes like this. When they hypnotized her, they found out that she was in the last war in her previous life, and planes bombed her house. And that's how she died. So she has a trauma from the noise of the plane. 5 seconds before she died, the plane came, and boom, and the next thing, she was dead. You understand? There is a film in Israel by a Druze, Arab kid. I used to live in a city. When he was 3 years old, he started to tell his parents, Az. Nobody knew what Az is. Then he started, when he became 7, he said one day to his father, take me to my wife. His father said, what wife? They call up the television. They said something very interesting is happening here. He claimed he remembered his previous life. They came with a camera and they walked with them. He went to another Arab village in Israel, maybe 10 kilometers away, 10 minutes ride. They knock on the door, a 44 years old woman, Arab, covered from head to toe, opened the door. Now there's a 7 years old and she see a camera. What is she gonna think? It's a candy camera? What is it, you're making a show here? What is she thinking? So he said to her, the boy, I'm your husband, Adel. She said, what do you mean, my husband? My husband is died. He was an Israeli soldier. He died in Lebanon when he was 37 years old, 7 years ago. He said, yes, I am Adel. I came back. And now they go in. She brings the family album, and he begins to name each one of the relatives. And then he says, where are the letters I used to send you from Lebanon? So she brings the letter, and he said to the reporter, I can tell you my serial number as a soldier. There are 7 digits, he remembered 5. Well, 7 years ago, he didn't remember the last 2, but he remembered 5 digits. And then he remembered where his uniforms was, in what closet. And the best part is that he went to the volleyball court. He was a volleyball player. And he shows, you see, I was playing with him. I was on the right, I was on the left. This was the coach. And the last thing on the film, they show him sitting with his cousin. The cousin now is 44. He was supposed to be also 44. Same age. But the problem is now he's in a new body. He's 7 years old. So they sit together and they remember how to use to dance with the women in a nightclub. And they show it in Israeli secular television. That hate religion very much, I promise you this. They show it there. And mamash, in the end, the boy is standing by his grave, his own grave, and crying. And the woman from the Israeli television, she asked him, what are you feeling? He said, I feel horrible. I remember how I died. It's strange to see me here in a grave. You understand? I'm done for today. I have a lot more things, but time ran out on me. I have spiritual pictures in my website, and the film I'm going to make, God willing, hopefully within a month will be ready. I'm making a film about life after life with music and clips. Very professional it's going to be. I have a feeling that it makes a revolution in the Jewish world, and many people will wake up when they see that everything that we discover today, it's already in the Torah, they begin to realize. And that's a tool to encourage Jews to become religious. In that film, I'm going to show spiritual pictures that I have, that cameras detect all kinds of souls, because the lens of the cameras works in a different frequency. What we cannot see exists around us. But sometimes when you take pictures, the lens detects images of people, very interesting, and you didn't see. And that's I have a lot of interesting pictures that usually I show, but it's going to take another 10 minutes, so I don't want to stretch it too long. Any questions before we finish? 1 or 2 questions? Yes?
According to Torah on Har Sinai, 360,000 Jewish souls over there.
600,000.
600, sorry.
Yes.
So if it's 600...
I got your question. Let me answer you. So 600,000 souls are the root of the souls. Not only 600 and that's it. Each soul can split to thousands of pieces. You understand? Could be your soul and my soul were used to be once. You understand?
How come when you were talking about reincarnation, the whole soul reincarnates?
Not all the whole soul. Not the whole soul. Some of the soul, sometimes the whole soul, depends how wicked the person is. Some sparks of the soul comes back, not everything. Yes, and a person can come back in 2 different bodies. I showed you. Cain came back as Hitro and the Egyptian men. At the same generation, part of the soul was in this body to get killed, part of the soul in this body to give Tzipora to Moshe. So this is an example of how a person can be divided to different bodies, because the body is only the cover.
Okay, so 11 months after the person dies, the soul cannot reincarnate, right?
Not true. We can see Shiva on a person, he's already in a new body in the world. Yes, we don't know. We go by the halacha. A person can be reincarnated in days. Everything possible.
According to, again, Torah, the soul enters the body of the baby on 40th day. So how come...
No, I understand what you say. When a husband and wife are together, and now the wife conceived, from now it will take 40 days from the baby to become a human being, alive, male, female, pulse, waves, everything. But when God decides someone who died now, if now today it's the 48, right? Is a father and a mother. Now today it's the 48 of the pregnancy. Now is the decision where to send the soul into this person. When the soul enter in a 40th day, up to then it's still not a human being. What soul? Soul that needs a test of a woman or soul that needs a test of a man? Because the first 48, the husband and wife with their prayers can change the sex of the baby. If it's supposed to be a girl and they pray a lot for a boy, up to 40 days it can be changed. After that, it's a fact already. If a person lost his hand, he can pray until tomorrow to get it back. He won't come back. You understand? Once it's a decree, it's a decree. So up to 40 days, it's all open. It's all reviewed. Once it's finalized, the 40th day, that's why the Gemara says that if a woman, God forbid, had a miscarriage, if it was before 40 days, she doesn't have to be afraid for her life, and she's not impure like another woman. If it was after the 48 days, the Gemara says, then she has to have all the laws of impurity, and there is no placenta without organs of a baby. If there is a placenta, for sure, if there was a miscarriage with placenta who came out with the blood, you should know there are pieces of a body. How the Gemara knew such things that only 10 years ago they discovered, with the best equipment, that the life begins in the 40th days. I have a whole lecture about babies and life. It's not the topic today. Any more questions? Yes.
When baby is conceived,
yes.
Gemara says that the baby can see, there is no time for baby. The baby can see the whole life.
It's 9 months. 9 months. Spiritually, not physically.
Spiritually?
Yes.
Which life is that?
No, you see the whole world, not the whole life. The whole world.
It says it's life in advance.
No, there's no source like this. Somebody either misled you or you misunderstood him. The baby doesn't see his whole life. God showed Moses all the generations to come after his death until the time of Messiah. And that was a special event that he showed him what's going to happen in every generation. No person can know his future. Even Moshe.
Once you're born, you don't know.
No, it's only teaching him the entire Torah, but doesn't show him his entire life. No, because the life of a person is in his hand. Where to go, what to do mitzvot, to make sins, to murder, not to murder, to donate, not to date. It's 100% in your hand. You donate it, your entire life changes. Like a GPS. The free choice concept works very similar to GPS. You were supposed to get off the exit and you had a great appointment and you make $1 million. You missed the exit. Now it's 2 hours traffic. By the time you got back, the investor got very angry for your disrespect. Doesn't know you had made a mistake. He left. He went back to the airport. You lost the deal. You still, God forbid, poor for the rest of your life. It changed your children. It changed your marriages. Look, it's a chain reaction will never end until the end of time. So every moment in our life changes our entire eternity. That's why they cannot show a person his entire life. His life is in his hand. Thank you very much. Thank you again for organizing everything. And yes.
Thank you.
Yes, one-on-one. No problem. Thank you very much.